I get to interview David Barr. David, none of us in the room have been the IFA chair. What's that like? Any big surprises?
Big surprises. I wouldn't say big surprises. Look, how many love that talk about AB5? There you go. Okay, so that's my day. It's turned into me probably 15 hours a week. It's a volunteer position. It's a way to give back to an industry that's changed my life. I would say biggest surprise is, and I'm going to laugh as I look at Brad Fishman on this, biggest surprise is the politics within the politics. Look, I'm on Capitol Hill fighting the good fight, and there's politics just within IFA that I have to battle sometimes, but that's fine. I knew I signed up for that. We were successful in Alabama. That was really, I would say, encouraging to me. We put together a multi-pronged holistic approach to a franchise bill in Alabama that was essentially the biggest part of the law that was going to strip franchising was you could not charge ad funds in the state of Alabama as a franchisor. If that law had passed, again, it's just another mark against franchising. Like, well, why did I join a brand? I joined a brand because it's a brand, right? So we were successful in Alabama. That was really encouraging for me as an individual because I spent a lot of time on that and was down in Alabama fighting the good fight. California has just been kind of a blowback. California law passed 2 weeks ago. It's effective January 1. New York issued yesterday their first draft. And Governor Cuomo has already said he wants to out-progressive the progressives in California. So anyways, that's some of the learnings. It's been fun. Overall, been fun.
Obviously. So you've had entrepreneurial ventures all over the place. When did you first realize you were an entrepreneur?
Look, everybody in this room is almost an entrepreneur, right? And I don't know where it hit you. I know where it hit me. I was probably 10 or 12 the first time I remember it. I remember saying to my dad that he was a Navy pilot. So he lived on the edge, I guess, as a Navy pilot, right? But it was a different type of edge. And maybe I got some of that living on the edge from him. But I remember the two stores that kind of changed my world at the age of like 10 to 14. I said, Dad, why aren't you owning a business like this? One was 7-Eleven. I just thought that was the coolest thing when we got Slurpees in our town. And I thought, that's really cool. I can go in here and get everything a 12-year-old would want is right in a 7-Eleven, right?
Amen.
And then the second was the first Gap store, when it was just jeans. I don't know, now I'm showing my age. But in the 70s, Gap was just jeans. And I remember going in a jeans store thinking, like, this is the coolest thing there is, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I always thought I'd be an entrepreneur. The reason I left Pizza Hut and joined Great American Cookies was I was going to have an opportunity to work with the entrepreneur, the founder. I did that for 6 months before becoming the CEO. Because I said, I'm not sure you can, from a book smart, learn entrepreneurship. You got to get around it, touch it, feel it. But I always knew I was going to end up having my own business someday.
Thank you. So everyone in the room works with entrepreneurs. To help better understand that mindset that you have, how do you gauge risk and reward? How do you determine what you're going to do, not do?
Look, there are different types of entrepreneurs in the world. There's the Dons who have a vision, see something, start it from fresh, right? Yeah. There's Brad Fishman, him and his wife with Fishman PR, Shelley's son with Bright Star. They saw something, they saw a gap, a need, and they fulfilled it, right? I'm not that entrepreneur, admittedly. I'm a finance-based entrepreneur. I look at risk reward, and I've done so by either finding opportunities to invest in or buy, but I've never said I'm the one who can go dream up the dream. but I would like to think I can copy with the best of them. And there's something to be said for that, right? Just, hey, I can, and admittedly, spending time in China, you talk about copying with the best of them. I mean, they see something, I can send them something from the US and say, this is pretty cool. I can fly there next week. This came up with gamification, just a quick story. So how many of you know the gamification trend in training, right? So gamification's become really big because millennials learn through games, right? So I had met an individual, many of you might know, who was leading a gamification company here in the US. I sent a bunch of screenshots and pictures to China. I showed up literally in China like 5 days later. And they pull out the phone. They go, look at this. And there's this guy running around in a forest picking up pizza boxes, and it's going ding, ding, ding. Now, it's all in Chinese. And they're telling me this is a whole new learning platform, and they did it overnight, right? And I'm like, well, I don't know if it is or isn't. It's all in Chinese, and people are just running around, and things are going ding, ding, ding. So, but I say that to say, as an entrepreneur, I've tried to just balance risk reward. I've tried to focus on what am I good at. I know I've learned what I'm really bad at, and I've learned what I can be good at. And I think I'm good when I understand how we interact with the consumer, what the point of difference is, and then just really drive those factors and figure out how I can assist in that process. And if I can't, I've had to learn to pass. And I've had some bad investments.
So you know yourself well. And as we as consultants and franchisors, we're helping our franchise candidates know themselves, understand their strengths, understand their weaknesses. Are they a good rule follower? Can they follow a proven system? And you've determined that's exactly who you are. You're an ideal franchisee, not so much an ideal franchisor from a creator standpoint. Does that sound right?
Yes and no. Look, I have a little bit of rebel in me. I have the only KFCs in the US that serve Coke. Why? Because the CFO for Coke lives next door to me, and I've always been friends with Coca-Cola executives. So I'm a rebel in that regard. I'm a rebel. I'll tell you a quick story. So I had, in 2011, they come back to IFA. I had been away, so 94, 98 I was involved in IFA, or in franchising. From most of the 2000s, I did two things. I ran jewelry companies and I coached baseball. And I was on the baseball field 42 hours a week until I got back to work after my boys went into high school. And so in 2011, I was at an IFA conference on financing, and I went up, and I'd never met Shelly's son, and she had just presented, and she was sitting in a hotel lobby. And Shelly was the chairwoman of IFA 2 years ago, for those who don't know. And I went up to her.
What year is this?
2011.
Okay.
And I was asking her about her business. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Well, maybe someday I could be a franchisee. And she literally looked up at me, put her hand up, and she said, we don't like your kind, and went right back to work. Now, those who know Shelly know that Shelly is very purposeful. Like, she knows what her franchisee is, right? And she quickly determined I was an investor. I was not a franchisee.
That's called a takeaway sell.
And she wanted people on her brand every single day. And she didn't want David Barr. I buy brands and then put a management team in. And she absolutely knew she didn't want that.
So I
got the last laugh,
Okay.
because 3 years later she asked if I'd sit on her board of directors. So, I mentioned that just to say, am I the perfect franchisee? No, but I do think I understand franchising, and that's the benefit I would bring as a franchisee today in my role. But
understood. Yeah. Okay. Some other questions put together for you. Entrepreneurship, learned or born with?
I think both. God, I hate saying both. oftentimes I give interview candidates, you have to be one or the other, right? You have to be like fruit or vegetable. You tell me, what are you, right? And I hate it when they say both, because I'm like, oh, so we've just determined you can't make a decision. And so I hate saying both. But I'll say this because I think you got to have a burning desire deep in your stomach. Because I think the number one successful element to be a great franchisee, my opinion, across all platforms, is grit. And my guess is to be a great consultant, you got to have grit. Because you hit hard times. You just do. When you're out there on your own, you hit hard times. And the ability to have that grit, I don't know if you can learn that. I think people either kind of have that from their upbringing or they don't. And I think it's really necessary to have grit. Now, once you have grit, I think risk reward and those type of pieces of being an entrepreneur and how to interact with humans and how to manage humans and capital, all that can be learned. But if you don't have the grit going in, I think it's tough.
Yeah, everybody would agree, totally. Yeah. Okay, so in franchising, biggest success and biggest not so much. Failure, obstacle, whatever you want to call it.
Let's start with the failure. Because I'm looking over here. Come on, Brad, stand up.
Failure?
I'd like to think David and I know franchising pretty well. We invested in a franchisor that pretty much lasted, what, about 6 months?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one.
They're in the room today. No.
Brad called me up. This was about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Brad called me up and said, David, I'm looking at investing in this franchisor. Will you go take a look at it? And I went and met with him. I thought, okay. So I called Brad up. And that was the extent of my due diligence. It was like a lunch. I called Brad up. And I said, are you in? He goes, yeah, I'm going to be in. I said, okay, then I'm in. So we both put some money in, not a small check. And the learning from it was this. I thought, well, everything Brad's ever invested in has done really well. So if he's in, I'm in. And he thought, everything David really analyzes, because he's really good at this risk-reward thing, and if he figures it out, then I'm in. So neither one of us did our respective jobs. We both just said, yeah, you're in, I'm in. You're in, I'm in. And so that didn't turn out so well. But we still loved the idea, and someday we're going to revive that from the ashes. The best success would probably be the KFC business, candidly. Again, I acquired that, my first 2 units, with 90% debt, 10% equity. How was I able to do that? I was a CEO of Great American Cookies. I had this map of 400 units behind my wall. This is a true story. I had SunTrust and a bunch of banks come in, and they were all saying, well, we don't know if we can do the deal. And I said, look, there's 400 units behind me. I helped create that. I'm going to do 400 units again. Do you want to be part of it? If not, fine. If so, you got to get on board now. And I got 90% debt, which is just stupid money.
How long ago was that?
That was 1998. So I hardly put anything in. And now we have the 30 units, as I mentioned. So that's the platform that allows me to do everything I do.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, I've got a little lightning round activity for you.
Lightning round.
All right, let's hit it hard. Lightning round. Deep breath. All right. Most important question: invisibility or super strength?
Meaning, if I wanted to be a superhero,
Of course.
which one
You're
would
already
I?
a superhero. What's it gonna be?
I'd want a super strength. I think I tend to be very transparent. People who work closely with me know who I am.
Yeah.
I come through the front door. I don't go around the side on issues. One of my big management mantras would be, you go through walls, we don't go around them. And if walls hold us back, then they hold us back. But we're going to go through walls because we deal with walls once. We don't deal with them twice.
That's an entrepreneur there. All right, in your food business, original or crispy?
Original. Original all day. Original? Who's the original guy? There you go.
How about spicy?
Oh, that's at Popeyes. Thank you.
Oh. I'm looking at the rest of the questions to see no Chick-fil-A questions. Tacos or burritos?
Tacos all day.
Tacos? Anybody else? I'm a burrito man now.
I'm not big on the sauce.
Fruit or vegetable?
Fruit all day. I know I try to eat more veggies, right? But fruit.
Steak or chicken?
Steak. And many of you know I was the longest standing board member at Del Frisco's. I've been on that board since 2007. We sold it last week. It was a sad day for David Barr. When my Del Frisco's, there were only 4 Del Frisco cards in the country, and I had one of them. And when that went away, that was like losing a baby. So steak all day long. Yeah.
You can still eat at Taco Bell.
Yes, yes.
Sushi or salmon? Salmon or tuna?
Salmon.
Salmon?
I'm not spicy.
I don't need to ask you Coke or Pepsi.
I'm a Coke guy.
Yeah.
When I worked at Pepsi, if you went to my house, I couldn't have my friends over from Pepsi because my refrigerator is full of Coke. So I've always been a Coke guy.
Nice, all right. Sweet or savory?
Well, on Coke, I'll admit, age brings you to Diet Coke, right?
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, no. When I was at Great American Cookies, we had our research and development was attached to the office, so they made cookies there every day. And every morning, I had a tray of 18 cookies brought to my conference table, which was in my office. I had a desk and a conference table, so 18 cookies.
Every day?
Every day.
Did you share them?
And yeah, if someone came in, but I generally ate them. And one day my assistant walked up to me and she said, "You are out of control." I said, "Why do you say that?" She said, "You had 8 Cokes today and 18 cookies." And I was 32 and she was probably 50 at the time, and she said, "This isn't sustainable." And I said, "Seems pretty good right now."
And by the way, you're fired.
Yeah, but by the time I hit 50, I well understood that's not sustainable.
Europe or Asia?
I love traveling Europe. Business-wise, I love Asia. I absolutely, for those who've ever done business in Asia, I absolutely love it. At one time, I was chairman of the 3rd largest jewelry company in Australia, and doing business in Asia at the same time. And I used to say that I could call Australia and say, "I need this analysis." And then the next day, we'd have an argument over, why do you need that analysis? And then the following day would be, well, could we do the analysis like this? And then the next day, I might get an analysis and it'd be half-assed, and I'd send it back. And then this would go on like constantly, like a week-long process. And I send something to Asia and say, "I'd like this analysis." And they send it 8 different ways overnight. Like, it's like, boom, here, you want it? There it is, right? And it's just so fast-paced, and I think some of it, I'm really interested in how society and sociological differences show up in business. And they are so competitive. And I think some of it is, I really do believe some of it's population density. When you live in a city, Australia is 19 million people in the landmass of the US, right? We have 350 million people. So 19 million in the exact same landmass, excluding Alaska. And I used to fly from there to Shanghai, which is 21 million people in one city. I think that density just creates this level of just raw, just got to get after it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're not going to get to the top. So.
Boxers or briefs?
Ooh, now he's getting personal. Wow, I guess you'd have to say, look, you're an imaginative guy, right? So it's probably best just not to go there. Could be commando, could be a lot of things. So.
Glad you didn't say neither. That's right. Favorite sport to play?
Sport to play nowadays, racquetball. I'm too old. I used to love all sports. I'm really a sportsaholic. That's why I said I took literally 8 years out of my career to coach my kids, and I would never give that back. I coached baseball, soccer, lacrosse, basketball. I used to track my hours. I came from this discipline of being purposeful. I don't do it as much anymore, probably should, but I used to, coming out of Price Waterhouse, continue to track every day where I spent my time. And I don't know if anybody's ever done that. It can be really helpful. You'll be amazed at how much wasted time you have in your life. That you'd step back and say, that wasn't purposeful. I didn't really, when I say wasted time, sitting on the couch is fine if that's what you want to do. But sitting on the couch when you really wanted to do some other things and you just couldn't get purposeful about getting other things done. So I used to track my time when my boys were growing up because I really wanted to see guy time. And one year when my son was 14, my oldest, and my youngest was 12, I averaged 42 hours a week on some ball field. And I'd never give that time back. I mean, it was well worth it. I know it sacrificed part of my career, but to this day, we have a special relationship, so it's nice.
Nice. What about, on that topic, planner or last-minute decision maker?
So I just gave this wonderful, heartfelt speech about being purposeful, but I'm a last-minute guy.
When did you book your flight for this?
I booked my flight about 24 hours before this, yeah. I've learned I can't book flights. My life changes too much. Don, in fact, can I tell a story? Don sent me a message because Kelly, I think, or Kristen, or somebody had been sending me messages about booking your flight. And I'm like even my assistant kind of laughed, like they clearly don't know who David Barr is. And so about 3 months ago, Don kind of wrote me, well, I guess you've changed your mind. You're not going to be our speaker. And I called him up. I can remember where I was. I called him up, like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you don't want to book a flight? I'm like, I will be there. I just don't know where I'm coming from or where I'm going to, but I know that day I will be there. So.
He's like, if David didn't show up, you better have some more international Italian gun runner stories, from yesterday. Vans or Converse?
Converse. I grew up in Converse. Chucks. I see the Vans on today.
Thank you. Snow ski or water?
Both. I'm a big skier. I don't snow ski enough. I love it. But I still get out and water ski a fair amount living in Atlanta, Georgia. So.
Nice. Country or rock and roll?
Country all day.
Georgia. Football, baseball, or basketball? I think you got that one covered though, right? From watching, you got a team.
I would do what? Look, I'm an SEC football guy, right? So if I'm going to watch something, I'd like to watch SEC football.
I heard some hisses. What about, is this a crazy one? So what age do you want to retire? Tim said never.
Yeah, I think there's part of me. I've tried to morph my career, and I'm really trying to do this more purposefully again in the last 2 years to be more about mentorship. I am now just starting, and it's not on my resume, just starting to work with 2 or 3 different groups where the guys are in their 30s. They're young private equity groups. And trying to be mentors to them, still getting paid, but mentors. And tried to think about how I can leave a little more of a legacy through my business actions. And I think that's what we're trying to do at Franworth as well. We're trying to create brands that are sustainable, lasting, and long-term. And we look forward to introducing some of those brands to you all at the appropriate times in the future. But trying to take that career that direction. Mm-hmm. And if I'm successful at that, I would say probably never on a retirement. But there are days, look, you look out at the beach and you go, spending a couple weeks here just hanging out wouldn't be too bad either. So.
There's a few consultants doing business out on the beach.
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
So Fox or CNN?
Fox or CNN? It's really amazing. But let's be honest, this is like the new Republican or Democrat question, right? Where do you get your news? I've had the benefit or honor, I guess, of being a guest on both. And I would say more so than most. I would say, one, my music, I said I was country. I'm pretty eclectic. I have Sirius, and I kind of bounce around a variety of channels. As it relates to Fox and News, when news really breaks, especially around Trump, I love kind of flipping back and forth. Because it's as if you're on two different planets. Isn't it? I mean, it's really fascinating. You're on two different planets. Like, the world is ending over here, and it's one big joke over here, or vice versa, and it's just weird to me. Where do I lean politically? I think I lean politically, and I know this wasn't your question, but it was embedded in it. I lean politically where I think most of America is, which is we tend to be fiscally conservative, we want to support entrepreneurship, and we want to be socially liberal, and can't we all just love each other and get along? Unfortunately, that candidate cannot get through either side, right? That candidate is too conservative for the Dems and too liberal for the Republicans, and it's sad because I think that candidate would win the day in most places. So.
Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
I've never worn socks with sandals, but I did recently give a talk where Steve Hockett, who knows Steve Hockett of Great Clips? I don't know if you all know this, Steve rarely wears socks. So I knew he was in the crowd, so I took my socks off before I got on stage. And I went, shout out to Steve! But no, I have not worn socks with sandals.
All right.
Am I missing something there? Is that a trend?
Shout out to Steve. What about, see who gets this one in the crowd. How many hard-boiled eggs can you eat in an hour? You got to be over 45 to know that joke. Cool hand, Luke.
I missed that one. I didn't know.
Cool hand, Luke. Yes, sir. Don't answer it. Fastest speed you've ever gone in a car?
Fastest speed in the car would have been probably about 5 years ago. Well, probably longer than that. 6 or 7 years ago, because my boys would have been 18 and 16.
They were in the car?
We went on a family vacation to Germany. I rented the best A7 Audi turbo I could get. Did not tell my wife this, but we got in the car, she was in the back seat, and I said, well, we're gonna let the boys drive some on the Autobahn. And we let my youngest go first, and he just kept getting faster and faster, and I don't know, he was up to like 130, 140, and my wife's like, oh, okay, that's enough. And of course, those who know my sons, my oldest likes to being the alpha competitive guy. And so Taylor's zone was like there was no cars, so he's doing 130, 140, right? But Ryan's zone, there was cars everywhere, but he has to beat his younger brother, right? So he's just like, and I'm like, dear God! He's like, just let me beat him and then I'll slow down. And I'm like, yeah, but that wall's coming really quick.
Dad, we go through walls around them.
That was probably the fastest sustainable. Although after becoming IFA chair, the day I became IFA chair, I took a group of friends out to the track in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And paid for all of us to go around in Lambos and Porsches, and I don't know what speed I did. Well, I had to do faster than I guess what I just mentioned, because
You were driving.
I was driving, but yeah, because our average speeds around the track were like 130, so there had to be a point where we went faster. I wasn't looking at the speedometer though.
Yeah, I know the feeling, yeah.
Yeah.
How many redheads are you friends with?
Only one stands out. How's that?
Thanks for, I was sure you were going to say 0. Anything else we need to know about you, my friend?
No. Look, I love what you all do for the industry. You're a gateway from many clients who don't know about franchising into this wonderful world that can change lives. You make a difference every day. I appreciate you and what you do and being here. And I'm always a phone call away if I can ever be helpful. Don and Red know that, but love the IFPG team and love you all being here, and thank you again.
Appreciate you.